Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sporting Directions, proudly sponsored by Tsunami Teamwear, with myself, Simon Atkinson.
And me, Tavis Roberts.
For those of you who are new to the show, Sporting Directions is a podcast aimed at providing some ideas and guidance for those of you wanting to pursue a career in the world of sport. Over the course of this first series, we'll be interviewing a range of professionals from different areas of sport to share some of their amazing stories. We'll be having them share with us some of their achievements, some of their struggles, and any advice they might have for the many of you wanting to also pursue a career in the world of sport. Now, today we're very lucky to be joined by Johnny Coombs. Now, Johnny is the Director of Sport in the UAE and is the current BSME Chairman and Sports Executive. It's great to have you on the podcast today, Johnny.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start a little bit about you, but more importantly, a little bit about what you do. So could you just kind of explain to the listeners about your various roles and what it is you actually do in those various capacities?
Yeah, perfect. So my main job, my principal job, is Director of Sport at the British School Al Khabaira, which is over in the UAE in Abu Dhabi. And that role's really varied. The best thing about my job is one day is never the same. And a lot of the job is logistics and working to try and offer as many opportunities for our students to play sport. That's my principal goal. If I had to try and sum it up in one sentence, it's giving the kids opportunities to play, whether it be playing in an elite team, playing in a club, or just having an opportunity at lunchtime. So that would be my principal goal. There's lots of different areas to that. Obviously, first and foremost, I'm a PE teacher as well. So I'll teach examination courses, PE classes. One of the best things I really enjoy about the teaching is I can be going from a nursery class and then drop into an A-level class or a BTEC class and have that variety of ages, which is really makes it interesting and lots of different issues and problems, but enjoyments that come out of that as well. In terms of the role as the BSME, that's a voluntary role. And again, that's about opportunities. So BSME, the British schools in the Middle East, it's about bringing all of the PE teachers and the heads of PE and the heads of sport together to, again, provide opportunities. Now, we do that in a way which is sport and competitions, and we try and run a variety of different sport and competitions. There is a full-time staff there, and I work with the student coordinator of the BSME team, and we try and plan out a great calendar of events for the students, which we're really excited to have back in full this year. And we're just starting to ramp up the sort of preparations for that. So probably the number one thing is get those opportunities for the students, but you never know what your day is going to look like. And I'm sure we'll talk about day-to-day things, but it's an exciting role.
Johnny, what a great introduction to your capacities and your roles that you do in the Middle East. And very quickly, it's evident that you are very passionate about facilitating sport and providing those opportunities, from the lunchtime activities through the after schools and to your role in the BSME as the director. What I want to know and ask you now is, where did you get this inspiration, or who inspired you at a young age to feel this strong connection to sport and then pass this on to the next generation, or sort of make that impact within your school community or the wider region in the UAE?
Yeah, sort of growing up in my teenage years, I had an older brother. We'd always have some sort of sport and equipment. We lived on a farm. And I think our first job in the summer was to try and muck out the barn as quick as possible so we could create a tennis court or a cricket pitch or whatever we wanted to play in there. And that sort of led to a love of sport. And when I went to school, all I really wanted to do was sport, and anything sport. Everything else sort of, I've always been practical. So working in a practical setting really excites me. So going into a PE setting was where I sort of thrived in school. And then we had a PE teacher. Now, my PE teacher, I'm still in contact with him, was my inspiration. As corny as it sounds, he gave me so many opportunities at school. And we were in the north of England, and he would drive us down to Rosslyn Park to play in the rugby sevens. He took us to Canada on rugby tour. We climbed Mont Blanc. We did so many different activities in school that just really inspired us. Rugby was the main sport. We did a little bit of football and cricket in the summer, always playing at lunchtime. But he had a sort of an open door policy, so we'd always go and sit in his office and have a chat with him. And it was more of a friendship in the end by the time we left the school. So that was my inspiration. And then going through sort of my training, there was always a teacher that tended to get a bond with, even at university. And they've been my inspiration going through. So when I hit my first teaching job, I just wanted to give the kids that I taught the same opportunities that I had. And yeah, so it came from school really, and one PE teacher in particular.
What a massive answer, like going from being young and working your way through to the high school. And I'm going to attempt to maybe dive into a little bit of psyche here to dig a little bit deeper. From a young age, we had DIY cricket and tennis courts. You had variations that you had access to through your first PE teachers, such as climbing and hiking and being involved in rugby. It sounds like the things that attracted you to PE and sport was the practical nature and the variation. Do you think that's a fair assessment, and you sort of felt attracted to this sort of industry because it stopped you from getting bored?
Yeah, and growing up in a rural background. So we grew up in rural Northumberland, so everything was outdoors. Just to get to the school bus, it was a 15-minute walk in the morning. So everything, I was outside and with nature and sort of physical activity. That was me growing up. And then it just as continuation of that was taking up sport and that being the next stepping stone for that. But so many people in where we grew up, it was a community. And one of the things that I love about sport and physical education is the community. So our rugby coach had a big old Volvo car. It was a 7-seater, and he used to drive around the farms and pick us all up to go to rugby training and then to go to rugby matches at the weekend. And that was the sort of spirit of our community, that everyone used to help. And we used to get snowed in at times, and people used to drop shopping around and that had the 4-wheel drive. So part of my sort of culture when I was growing up was this community feeling. And then when I went into school and sport, and team sports in particular, team sports have always been a sort of a passion of mine, because you have a community inside your team. And that's what I really sort of love in my role, that I get to offer those opportunities for students to become part of a community. And each team is a small community, and you see those bonds and you know, friendships start. There's many friendships that I've grown on a sports pitch that have come to be my best friends, and family friends that you know you can pick a call up to. Just going back to one story about my PE teacher, we had a CPD with Sir John Jones, and he's an inspirational speaker. If you ever get to speak to him, he just stands the hairs on the back of your neck up. He's brilliant. And he said, there's probably one person in your life that's inspired you, but have you ever told them that they inspired you? And he says, if you haven't done that, go and pick up the phone when you go home. And that's what I did. I was over here in Abu Dhabi, and I picked up the phone to my old PE teacher, Derek Todd-Hunter, and I said, you were my inspiration, and you were really, you know, a part of where I am now. And I don't know how many people actually do that. You know, you've probably got a passion or someone that's inspired you, but have you ever told them? And I think that's probably one of the most powerful things. It made, you know, it almost brought me to tears when I told him, because why I am the person I am now is because of him. And I think that's a really probably an important thing to do, is just to think about what's inspired you through life, and make sure you've told those people, because we probably sometimes don't. So that was one of the best CPDs I had. Not only was I inspired about some of the things that Sir John Jones was saying, he made me do this one extra thing, which I've never thought about.
No, that's really inspiring to hear, and you're absolutely right. Everyone in life is very quick to criticize, but very few people are willing to go the extra mile just to say thank you and to say, yeah, you inspired me. And that is probably the best thing about the job that we do. I mean, we're all directors of sport here. To know that we've made a difference, to know that we've helped someone in their journey. That's why we do this job.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just going to pick up on something you've been saying, and I love the fact that the same 2 words keep coming up in every question and in every anecdote that you said, and those 2 words are community and opportunity. And attached to that, the word friends kept kind of coming in, and I'm going to go back to the situation that you're in, and that is one that you don't teach in the country in which you grew up. You don't teach in the country in which you kind of were born. And going back to the idea of community, I, like you, have play a lot of rugby. I love my team sports. And I found that in the various countries or the various districts, provinces, cities, towns that we moved to, the first thing I've always done is whenever I've unboxed the plates and the cups is I've unboxed my boots and I've gone and found the nearest rugby club. And within a week, you have a new family, a new community. Do you feel that moving internationally, that's something you can do? Can you tell our listeners, is sport as powerful overseas in creating that community and that friendship as it is in domestic countries?
I think for me, it is the tool of friendship, sport, whether you are playing it, involved in it, coaching it, refereeing. There's so many different roles within a sporting team. My journey has come from rural Northumberland, travelled down to Liverpool to go to university, love the city. There's something about Liverpool that brings that community, even though it's a city and it's not as rural as I grew up. I had a real passion for the city because they look after their own. It's one of their real mottos as a city. So I stayed on after university and got my first teaching role there in a really tough school. It was an all-boys school with 2,000 boys. And you can imagine there's a lot of testosterone. But a lot of the students that I taught there are some of my friends now. And when I go back, I always make a visit to Liverpool. I do a local park run, which is a local 5K sort of series. And I always see ex-students, hello, sir. And it's still sir. It's not Johnny. And that's the respect that you get from some of your ex-students. And then from there, I went and thought, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But for my family, I might have a change here in Korea. And I went across to Suzhou in China, where I met you, Tavis. And that's one of the friendships that we still have. So, and that was a great journey from China, 5 years there. Again, wanted to look at a change and come across to the UAE. But across that whole journey, I've always played, coached, and obviously been part of a school community where you've got lots of teams and parents involved. And that's your first number one goal, to make those friendships and to find out, local knowledge. You're new to a city or you're new to a town. How do you work out what to do? Well, you obviously ask people, but the people that you're in touch with are through a sport, the rugby team, the football team, and everyone's willing to help. And I think that community, as I've gone through those journeys, especially internationally, people look after each other, and there's always someone that's been in the same situation that you've been in and that can offer you support, guidance, and advice along the way. So that's something that's been a real inspiration for me going across. I found a place now which I'm almost calling home. When we come back on a plane, it's like coming home back into our house here, and it's somewhere we might want to extend our stay. And that's because of the friendships, the community, the sport. This afternoon, I'll be going down and watching our local rugby team with a lot of our friends. So that's, for me, sport is a vehicle for community, for friendship, and to help you. It can help you along your own journey. And we all have problems and issues that come along the way. And I think there's always a solution within someone that's been there before in your team.
No, thank you very much for that, John. It's a very detailed answer, but one that I think everyone needs to hear. Sport is community is sport, and it can open doors to various things. I think the most important one being, as you said, friendship that can span years and can span countries and continents. So you spoke a little bit there about your accomplishments, and I think it's safe to say one of your greatest accomplishments is the inspiration you've made with the students you've taught to go back to the UK and still be called sir, and knowing you've taught those values, that those attributes that have seen those students go on and succeed in life. And what I'd like to ask you is go in the other direction and sort of try and get you to open up about some barriers you might have experienced. Have there been any barriers to you teaching, moving overseas and teaching? Anything that you can think that maybe people need to be aware of and not be afraid of? Yeah,
I think for me, the biggest barrier about being abroad is family. So we talk about community, we talk about sport, but you're away from your family. And my family is all based back in Northumberland, where I started my journey. And you miss them. It's a real draw that you miss them. There's so many positives about living abroad and everything that offers you, but you do miss your family. And I think one of the ways that I've coped with that and the strategy I've put in is technology is brilliant nowadays. We're having a video call here. I often speak to family, through video call, and it's very accessible now with flights and getting there and back. But it comes to me in terms of some of the students that I've taught and the barriers that they've faced along the way. And I think we've got a really powerful role as a PE teacher in helping students coming across some of the barriers that they have as well. So give you a couple of examples. Rural sort of Northumberland for us, one of the barriers was access to sport and getting the ability to get some of the facilities. And that was offered to me by just some of the really, really passionate people that wanted to drive around and pick everyone up. So I went into Liverpool into my first career, and I really wanted to break down some of those barriers. And we had a sixth form, and it was a brilliant sixth form, lots and lots of students, but no sport. So I thought, well, let's put a football team in here and let's try and create a football team. But then they didn't want to train. So we decided to sort of do it Rocky style. And we did a morning training camp. So I would go around in an old LDV van, pick these boys up from the local estate, bring them back onto school. We'd start off with a little run. And the barrier for them was putting them all in a team kit. And they really felt part of this team as soon as they put that uniform on. And that went on from just this local football team. When I left the school, there was an academy running, a sports academy, and that kept students in education for longer because we introduced sort of vocational qualifications like an NVQ and a BTEC. And that gave the students a pathway to not drop out of education, to go to be part of this football team and an elite setup, to actually have a qualification there and a passion. And it was the vocational side that we introduced there. So I think it's been a real sort of mixing issues here with what are the barriers with moving abroad. Yes, you're alone and you do miss your family, but you've got the opportunity to break down a lot of those barriers for the kids that you're teaching, and they will go through the same issues. So there'll be students here that don't see grandma and granddad. So giving them the opportunity to be in part of the teams and being part of a sport and feeling that community sense is really, really powerful. So I think you've got so many tools to it, and I've probably digressed into a couple of issues there or a couple of stories, but that was some of the things that popped up.
I think you've just given us a seminar on how to overcome barriers that students may have faced and what are the values that sport has and what it can do to help them. I'd really like to be able to wind it back a little bit and maybe make the connection between what are the barriers that you have faced, like just personally, either in your career path, or what is a way that the values of the sport have helped you overcome a difficulty or a barrier before?
Yeah, there's been many, and I think one that strikes out on a very personal note and a very emotional note for me is we've got a baby boy, Zane. He's a year and a half, but we really struggled to have a baby, and we'd had a number of different miscarriages. And I was away with a sports trip, and I was at a group of students away with me, and I got quite upset. I got quite emotional on the trip, and I just had a moment to myself. One of the parents come and grabbed me. He said, "What's the matter?" And I sat down and I explained to him. This is a parent, one of the students in one of the schools that I taught at, and he said, "Look, Johnny, I know CEO of a hospital that works with these sort of issues, and I want to put you in touch with them." Got back to school after the trip, he put me in touch, and then we got surrounded by a group of outstanding medical professionals that was a parent of the school and really wanted to help us overcome this issue. And from there we had our baby boy, and that for me is a barrier that we had as a family, but it was overcome by a sporting. I don't mind talking about it because, it's an issue that we faced, and it was an issue that we overcome through sport and the community of sport. It's a very sensitive issue for me and my wife, but we wouldn't be here now with the family if we weren't, one, in the role that I was in, two, in the community spirit. And that was another sort of really, really touching moment for me, and I'm close friends with that family now. And it's just amazing how sport can not just give you opportunities, it can give you, real sort of answers to not just a problem, which is, easily solved. You can go to someone and say, I need to borrow £100. I'm a bit short this month, but that was a problem that couldn't be solved, and it was solved through the power of sport. And I think that's really, really powerful and an emotional hit for me. But I think it's a really nice one to talk about because it's got such a positive ending, and it came through, you know, a beautiful family in one of the schools that I was in.
Johnny, thank you for taking us there and sharing us that story. I can appreciate that it's very personal, and there's so many sort of one-liners that sort of symbolize the love that you have for this industry. It's not just sports, it's the power of sport to break down the barriers, to create that connection. And I can understand totally why you place such high regard on this industry, and you give 100% to give back and to facilitate those same opportunities onto the younger generation, because it's obvious what the power of sport is for you and how it's been able to change your life. For the people that want to get into the sports industry, I'm going to change in topic a little bit, but for the people that want to get into the sports industry and to sort of make the impact or have a similar sort of journey, what advice would you give to them? How could they either find their niche or find their impact or create their community?
Yeah, I think that I had a chat with, I teach an older class of 18-year-olds, BTEC sport, and I sat down with them. I said, where are you going in life, and why did you take this course, and what are the opportunities? And they turned around, and this was just a couple of weeks ago, actually. So it's a really nice topic to talk about. And they said, sir, there's so many opportunities in sport. And I said, tell me, explain what you want to be. And they said, sir, if you just take a professional team, they have an entourage now of fitness professionals, sports profilers, analysts, sports nutritionalists, you know, and they were actually looking at some of the teams that have come to Abu Dhabi, and we had, you know, sort of a chance to go and have a look at these setups. And then you go into where our career that we're in as a PE teacher, as a director of sport, you then can go on to senior management and work. And a lot, you find in schools that a lot of management and leadership positions are sporting backgrounds, because you've got that logistical mindset. You love, you know, you've got a passion to work with the kids, and you really want to make an impact. So just in our school, we've got the head teacher, we've got the head of school, all that were heads of PE in their career. And I think it really does guide you through the values and the attributes that you get through sport really help you in your career. But going back to that class that I had, we said, right, on a whiteboard, write down how many opportunities there are for you and what university course you're going to do to get into those. We filled a whiteboard with sporting jobs because there are so many. And if you look at the development of professional sport, amateur sport, semi-professional sport, just before we were having a catch up, and obviously we're talking about rugby before this podcast, I'm going down to my local rugby club. There's so much that you can either do on a part-time or a full-time role. And I think sport has developed so much in my career, and it's going to give so many more opportunities for students and people that want to get into the industry as it continues to develop. And I think a lot of governments and a lot of, you know, local authorities are seeing the power now that sport has. You were coming out of, you know, a pandemic, and we've got some well-being issues and people that haven't been as active as possible. And I think that's going to create just a wealth of opportunities. So I think it's just it's exciting, really, isn't it, to be in a profession that we are, to see all these things and opportunities develop for the students that were taken through our schools, and see what their roles are going to be in the future. And probably there'll be roles that some of our students take up that we don't even know exist at the minute, and they'll be brand new. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting parts to it.
Well, Johnny, I think I can safely say that we've just found the soundbite to actually advertise the whole purpose of Sporting Directions. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is open up people's minds, people's opinions to the wealth of opportunity that is in sport and is growing. You know, as you've said, it's growing year on year, and there's many opportunities out there that don't currently exist, which will be coming into being very, very shortly. To know that you're in a position where you've got a large number of students that have already identified these opportunities is a real credit to you and your team in being able to actually get the students looking and researching and seeing that sport can be a vehicle to a very successful, very enjoyable career. I'd love to hear what advice you might have for other PE teachers, directors of sport, or even parents out there who are facing a generation of children who don't know about these opportunities, who don't know that sport has all this fantastic wealth of careers and directions people can take. What would you say to those people if you could get them all into a room at the same time?
Oof, that's a very good question. And I think you've got to look at, as a sports person or being involved in a sports team, what does that give you? And what are the key attributes that you would probably pass on? And you would look at working in a team. You cross working in a team across any industry. You look at organization and following a structure and being in that team. If you look at the skills of communication, so these skills that you empower in a sporting team, they can translate and transfer across into any industry. And being in a sporting role gives you these attributes that, yes, you can follow a sporting pathway, and there's so many pathways there, but they generate individuals that are well-rounded, that have the right tools to be successful at life and interact with other people in the right way, to make young people active, to make young people have a healthy upbringing. We look at so many of our students are into this e-gaming and esports, and I think that's a worrying trend for me, because as a student growing up, the first thing that I had to do if I wanted to get to know someone is talk to them, not text them or send them a social media message, is to go and have those social interactions with people. And sport gives you the confidence to do that. And being involved in a sport and a sporting career gives you these tools to really be sort of well-rounded individuals. And you look at any sporting team that you've played in and everyone in there, and you can really, see those characteristics fit across so many different people. And I think being in a sporting industry just gives you those tools to be successful at life, really, and to be well-rounded and have all those attributes that. And you go to be a lawyer and you go to be a banker, and if you put all those attributes into those, they're going to be even more successful. And I think that's the real power of sport, because it gives you not only the opportunity to do something that you enjoy, it gives you the tools to be successful at other things in your life.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, Johnny, it's really, really clear from what you're saying and the depth of what you're saying to us. There's this real passion for your career. You found your niche, you found your direction, you found what it is to be Johnny Coombs. And the idea that we found through many of our conversations with the many people we've spoken to so far is that sport isn't a job. Sport is a lifestyle. Sport is a career that can give you more than just money in your pocket to pay the electricity bill and put food on the table and keep a roof over your head. Sport is a career choice that can give you opportunities far beyond the job. It can give you the values, it can give you the community and all these things you've spoken about. And we're really, really grateful, Johnny, that you've taken the time to really focus on the things that sport can offer you beyond that of a job. And I think people really do need to sit up and listen to the many career opportunities out there and how they can get into it. And that leads on to my next question. If you were sat in front of, again, a group of BTEC or GCSE or A-level students right now, and they said to you, "Sir, we want to do what you do," what would the stages be? Looking at backwards planning, what would be the stages and the advice you would give them to become the next Johnny Coombs?
So I think the first one is education and have a passion for that education. I've just actually gone back to education myself, and I've joined University of Buckingham this year to do a master's, and I'm really sort of excited to get back into that academic research and to stay current. And I'm going to look at well-being, because I think there's going to be a lot of issues that come up with well-being that's come out of the pandemic. But with those students, I think the first thing is love your education that you're in and have a real passion for it. Pick a university after school that you feel is going to suit your needs. There's lots of different universities there. Don't just look at the course, look at the course content, the university campus and what it's going to offer you. And then when you're there, take advantage of every opportunity. And I think that's something I'm really proud of. My university lecturer, Danny Cullingham, you really give us so many different opportunities. I'm not just talking about the course that he delivered. It was the extra. So going into the schools and doing the national government body levels. He was like, Johnny, you know, you're not a rounders player at the minute. Go and do a qualification, because it will help you in your career, and it'll give you a more rounded sort of view of sport and what it offers. We did an outreach program with some of the local primary schools in Liverpool. And I think when you're doing anything, do it to your absolute best. And this is what my message would be: have a passion for it. If you get out of bed and you're not looking forward to going to university or going to school to do your first day at work, then you're probably in the wrong occupation. I've gone to work many times with a little bit of anxiety in my stomach. That's good, because I'm worried about making a speech to some parents, or I'm worried about some of the aspects of my job. But I've always woken up with a real passion to go in to work and enjoy it. The last week just gone, we've had a sort of a pre-season training camp for the under-19 rugby girls, and that was every morning. And I was getting up at 5:15, going down to school for 5:30, and getting everything set up for a 6 o'clock start. I loved it. Some people get out of bed early and they've got a real dread for their alarm clock. I'm up waiting for it and sort of really want to take a bite out of the day and make the best out of it. And I think that would be my advice. Use a passion, and once you've got that passion, take every opportunity, whether you're at university, starting your career, or just going out to do a day's coaching because you needed a little bit of extra income. I think try and do your best for everything you do. And if you're not feeling that passion in your belly, you're probably in the wrong career. But for me, it's the interactions with young people that really give me that passion. And you'll find that you're having a really, really bad day, and then there's one conversation: "Sir, that was such a great lesson. Thank you so much," that will push you. It's like playing golf. I'm not a very good golfer, and I'll hack my way around a golf course, but you'll play one shot and it will bring you back to the golf course the next time. And I think education's very similar. You just have those little interactions with students or staff or parents, and a parent will come and see you and say, "Look, Mr. Coombs, you've done this club and it helped, my son so much in his confidence." Or the students that I talk to that have left school, and they'll remember a lesson or a football match that we were at, and those are the things that they remember from school, which is great to give those opportunities. So just look after every moment that you have, and have a passion, and take advantage of everything that you can do.
Johnny, I totally agree with what you're saying. And it's one thing that I want to pick up on. Every interaction is an opportunity to grow. And you've said that from the moment that you started talking about giving advice. Get involved, get out of the bed, go do some coaching, take advantage of all the opportunities. But most importantly, it sounds like you should start with education and learn your craft. A little bit further back, you spoke about the attributes and the characteristics of what sport can bring to a well-rounded individual. And you spoke about working on a team, communication, leadership, developing confidence. And throughout this conversation that we've had so far, all of those attributes that we've talked about and discussed, we can see very clearly evident in your own sort of attitudes and personas and the way that you convey yourself. Okay, it sounds like you're a great role model. So what I want to know now is, what's next for Johnny Coombs? Where are you going to take this passion? Where are you going to take this energy? And where will your focus be in the next 1 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting question. So there's two parts that I'll answer it to. First, my current role, and two, where I would like to be in the future. So my current role, we've just come out of the pandemic and we've just started sport again. So I feel I've got a real sense of opportunity to give all of the students the chances that they had before the pandemic, and to make sure that I can provide as much as possible. So that in a short-term goal, that's what I want to do. And I actually made it, whatever career you're in, you have a performance management. And I sat down with my line manager and I said, this is one of my targets. I want to give them more opportunities to play sport. We've just done trials week, and it's so difficult to say no to students and not to give them the opportunity. It really hurts me as a director of sport when you have to say no, and you've got 80 and you can only provide places for 60 of those students to play in teams. And then the career. So I'm in a role now which I absolutely love, and hopefully you can see that I've got a passion for my role. But where do I go next? Because if I go next, my next step would be a senior management role. So an assistant head or a deputy head, and looking at a whole school. Those roles would have a whole school sort of emphasis. And that would mean moving out of a career that I'm so passionate for, and obviously still creating the opportunities for students, but in a different aspect of school life. So for me, that's a real draw between, and it's a clash between having this real passion and really wanting to progress my career. And I would probably say I'm really happy in the role that I'm doing now, and I'm content. I've got a fantastic school, a fantastic team of professionals around me that really work 100% to give the students the best opportunity. I'm in a wonderful city, in a wonderful place in the world. So I'm very content in my role and to stay there in the next couple of years moving forward. But that's going to be a real hard decision when it's to move out of this director of sport role and to take a role which is a little bit more senior. So I think that's one of the barriers for me is when you've got a passion for something, making sure you keep it. And I've still got a huge passion to create these opportunities. So I think for me in the short term, it will be staying as director of sport in the current school. But with that, it's such a varied role. I would never say that I'd have the same day whenever I go to work. And I've worked in the same school for 8 years, but every day is different. Every day has a different set of challenges. Every different day has a different set of rewards. And it's just such an interesting and fascinating career when you don't know what you're walking into, and you've got so many different opportunities, rewards, student interactions, staff interactions. Just come back this morning from a community parent cycle where we bring the parents and the staff together, and we go out and we have a short cycle ride and a coffee. These are the things that I love, and these are the things I've got a passion for. So it's a really fascinating and enjoyable role that I'm in at the minute.
I'd like to just dive into your dream of becoming a senior manager. And you mentioned before that it's going to be a top level approach, something that's very holistic, not as specific in sport, maybe including such things as academics and student well-being and student security and safety. All of these, you get a chance to provide a lot of different opportunities still. It's still going to be a role that provides a lot of variety for you. And what I would love to be able to see you do here is show us a little bit of growth mindset and sort of identify where you are now and sort of identify the sort of skills or education or the attitudes that you still think you might need to develop to be able to meet the challenges of this new role.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that our school is very good at pushing you into, thinking about your career and how you can develop it. And that's one of the reasons I went back to university this year and sort of undertake a master's program and a research project on student well-being, because I think that's going to be a huge. Schools grow and they need to learn, and it's given me the opportunity to work on a whole school initiative to look at how we can be better at providing a well-rounded and sort of catered pastoral care for our students, and making sure that the 21st century student is catered for well. I had a little chat about gaming and social media and the impacts that has on a young person's life. And I think as students and as teachers, we have to develop ourselves for that, because we never grew up in that same era. So what are the challenges that students face, and how as professionals and teachers can we help them develop through those barriers and problems that they're occurring in their day-to-day life? I think as a professional, some of the attributes that I have in terms of that I've learned through my role, organization, communication, working in a team, and working with people on a one-to-one basis and developing staff, they would really sit well when I moved into a senior management role. And I think that is the positives that I would take forward in growing. And I'll sit and look at and sort of self-reflection, I think, is key when you're in any profession, whether you're in a outside of sporting role or in a sporting role. You've got to sit and reflect, who am I now and who do I want to be in 10 years? And I still want to have the passion that I have now. It might be sort of drafted into different areas, but I want to have that passion. And my passion comes around those student interactions. You know, I love the school and the role that I'm in because I get to interact and I get to impact on the students' lives and provide them the opportunities. And I think when you move into a senior management role, you keep that passion, but you just push it into different areas. And I think there's so many different opportunities available in there. You look at a deputy head or an assistant head, and there's so many different roles inside a school that you could fulfill. It's a really exciting challenge, actually, to think about that. And I always look at the roles and the jobs that are out in the professional field, and there's so much there. I think when it's time to move up, that will be, you know, an exciting challenge. But I'm sure the university and going back to academic reading will really help me prepare for that.
Yeah, I love this idea, Johnny, of keeping yourself challenged, keeping every day different. It really kind of keeps a spark in what we do. I want to go back to something you just said, actually, about the student interaction. And the reason I want to go back to that is, you know, I would agree to anyone that's listening. If you want to go into this profession, you have to enjoy interacting with other people, whether they be other teachers, whether they be students, you know, whether they be parents. You have to enjoy interaction. I think that's very key to highlight to anyone thinking of getting into this career, because it is the interaction that keeps you coming back, keeps you enjoying your job, to come in and know that you've made a real sort of difference to a child's day just by saying hello, good morning, or handing them, as you said, that squad shirt to say congratulations, you're part of the team. I was just wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit more on maybe one of your best moments of, say, like a student or a parent or a staff interaction that really resonates with you.
Yeah, probably one of the things that, and I've told this story many times to the students, is that team that I created in my first teaching career was a under-18 football team, Liverpool boys that were, you know, rugged and rough around the edges, but had a wonderful centre. And we went down to the National Cup, all the teams in the UK, and we were in a very later stages of it. And there was one of the students, and we were down at a big grammar school, and it was a fantastic sort of achievement for us to get there with these group of students. We went down there and we lost the game eventually, but one of the players got sent off. And we had a small discussion on the side of the pitch, and he decided that he wanted to walk back to Liverpool. We were about 2 hours drive from Liverpool, and he ran off, and that was him gone. And the game went on, and he ended up sitting in the changing room. And I went and spoke to him, and I said, "Look, Jamie, that was a really silly thing to do, what you did." And we had a good chat about that, and he really listened and learned. And then we went back on the bus, and a year later. We had a really successful year, and we won all of the competitions, and that was great. So that was where it finished in terms of that journey. And then I got a phone call. I was in China, and we had a gap placement, and I thought, I know a great bunch of students that would be really good for this. So I contacted that same team, and this young man that had been sent off, and, you know, we'd had this sort of falling out on the pitch. He said, "I'd really like to do it, and I'd really like to come out and give it a try abroad, and I'd really like to be involved in a school." So I said, "No problem." He just finished his degree. I said, "Come out and you do this gap year." 3 years later, he's done his gap year, he's done his PGCE, and I'm giving him his first teaching role in the school. And this is a student that we've brought all the way through, and I've taught myself. And then I leave the school and move across to the UAE. He's now the director of sport at the school. And I think for me, that's such a proud moment of having a student where we had a little bit of, you know, adversity in our career when he was a student. He's then come back and he's took those learning sort of roles through sport. He's gone into a sporting career. He's then gone into a role. And then next summer, I'm going to his wedding. And I think that's the pathway that gives you the whole journey. And we've gone from building a team that wasn't there, having a fantastic opportunity to do something great, and then it not quite working out right there in that football match. Him then coming across and being part of, you know, my day-to-day interactions in a gap student, and then as a teaching role. And then I was really proud when he got his first director of sport job, and then to go across to his wedding and to really have a strong bond and a strong friendship with this young man. And it's just a really nice story, actually. And it's one that's inspired me. And I hope, you know, I get get to go through that journey again, because it's just been there's been many phone calls and bits of advice through his career, and it's just a really nice whole journey for me.
I think that's probably the best way to really end an interview, isn't it? To end it on the real focus and the real reward of doing what we do, and that's to make a difference. And clearly, there's been a huge difference made to that young man's life who's now gone on to achieve some fantastic things. And well done to yourself there, Johnny, for helping that man, now move forward into that position. It is scary sometimes when you get to sort of age, you know, you and me are at, I think we're the same age, where you do look back at the students, you remember being, you know, year 7, you know, handfuls, and now they're grown, mature, prospering adults, and it does fill you with a sense of pride that you had a small hand in helping them become the people they've become. Because sport has that power, doesn't it? We teach those values that they need to be prosperous and succeed in life.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the most rewarding jobs, I would say, in the world, and I wouldn't ask for anything else as a career or a job. So I'm sort of proud, and I would call myself privileged to be in the position that I'm in.
Right, Johnny. I hate to do this. I could sit here and talk to you, and I'm sure Tavis could sit here and talk to you for an extended period of time, several hours, and we'd learn more and more every moment we spoke with you. But we are going to have to draw this to a close. So the way we tend to close these interviews is we like to throw a few curveballs at you, and we like to throw a few little fun questions your way just to see what sort of characteristics we can pull out of yourself. And my little fun question is, if you weren't in the sporting industry, if you weren't in the career you're in now, what other profession do you think you might have gone into?
Very good question. And I think from the background that I was in, I think there's something very cathartic about farming. And I think I would like to have had that journey of being able to work on my own farm and grow my own business and really have something tangible and in a farm. So I think I would have took a career that many of my friends have done from where my local heritage is. And I think I would have loved to have the opportunity to grow and start and build something in terms of farming. So that would have been probably my alternative career.
Actually, I could probably imagine Johnny Coombs as a farmer, out on the overalls, working with his hands, getting up early, loving his work, and going home tired and happy as well. So I could really imagine you really suiting that role. My fun question is, what is a strange habit or skill that has helped you on your way?
Lists. I love a list. And I think being organized and having that list is one of the most skills that's got me through everything. And I work everything through a handwritten list. I know we're in a digital era, but I love a notepad and a list. And I think that's been probably my one, being able to prioritize and get things down. And on a Sunday night, I'll write my list for the whole week. And that's kept me on the right path all the way through my career. And I think that just comes down into being an organized. And I think whatever career you're in, if you can stay as organized as possible. But I'm a terrible old-fashioned list maker, and that's my bad habit. And I should probably move it into the digital world, but it probably will never change.
Johnny, I would not agree. I would say that your list is not a bad habit. I think it's a great habit, and more people should probably be able to learn how to be organized and learn how to be prioritizing and productive with their time. So that's not a bad habit. Keep going, buddy. Keep going. I really want to thank you for the time that you spent with us today. There was some moments where you really took us on a very personal journey to emphasize the power of sport and the golden nuggets that you sort of shared with us to say that sport is the vehicle of creating friendships. And all of this is evident in what you do. You are a great role model to build communities and inspire the younger generation on what career paths are out there and what they can do and what they can hope to achieve within this wonderful industry. And your final story that you told about the young student's journey, starting off in Liverpool, and the impact that you've had and the opportunities that you provided him to the nth degree, where he's grown and developed under, with some of your guidance and with some of your care, to become his own athletics director and being very successful. So thank you so much for sharing these stories with us, these information, and we wish you all the best on finding your own future and achieving your own dreams in hopefully a senior leadership position.
Thank you very much, guys. Been a really lovely morning.
Yes, Johnny, and might I just add to that? I'm going to take some really key learns away from this, and just a few of the notes I've written down. I'm just going to read them. Really summarised. Sport gives opportunities. Sport gives community. Sport gives friendships. But the most important one, I think, for us is sport really does give you the chance to make a difference. And for those 4 key points, Johnny, I say thank you very much for taking the time to share them with us. And I hope anyone listening will remember those 4 key things moving forward, and hopefully be inspired to follow in your sporting direction. So thank you, Johnny. Thank you very much.